What is going on, everybody? Welcome to DFS Dose live stream, the first live stream of 2022. Shout out to the new year. This ain't
Yes,
the late
sir.
night live stream, sir. This is the midday live stream, the afternoon live stream.
Yeah, no,
Switching things up a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit, but nonetheless, ready to talk about Week 17. It should be a good and fun slate. 14 games, crazy. Haven't had a big slate like this in a hot minute, and there's a lot of good plays in my opinion. So a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Definitely. We can jump right into the quarterback position where the story of the week has not changed since we recorded the podcast. Trey Lance is 4,800 on DraftKings, priced under 5K. This is a dual threat quarterback with a high team total in a nut matchup against Houston. Not much needs to be said as far as cash games go. I think that we're locking Trey Lance in and sort of moving on.
Yeah, Trey Lance, 4,800. He's projecting as like one of the best quarterback plays of the entire season this week at 4,800. So it doesn't really get much easier than playing Trey Lance in cash. I would just say if you're a serious or trying to be a serious cash game player, Trey Lance is the quarterback that you're playing in. You're really not considering anybody else for cash games. So head-to-heads, double-ups, 50-50s. It's Trey Lance. He's going to be massive chalk. So going to have to maneuver that in tournaments, but for cash games, you just lock him in and move on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where the conversation really begins and ends as far as cash games go. So we can sort of focus on tournaments, I think. And I mean, who are you most interested in this week? What are the games you're trying to stack up, the teams you're trying to stack up, etc.?
Yeah, I think my favorite game on the slate, just from a ceiling perspective and tournament perspective, if I were to pick a game to game stack, it would be the Ravens versus Rams. I think that Tyler Huntley can move the ball on the Rams defense. It looks like he's going to start as Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure if he practiced at all this week. He's questionable. I personally don't think he's going to play. And Tyler Huntley would then be slated to start in place of Lamar Jackson. And we've obviously seen Huntley's upside this season already. And then you have Mark Andrews, who is just crazy expensive, and Hollywood Brown. And then on the other side of the ball, obviously Cooper Kupp going for numerous records. OBJ, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, all in smash spots against this pass funnel Ravens defense. So I think this is definitely my favorite game to target, and I love Stafford and Tyler Huntley this week, specifically at the quarterback position, and specifically Tyler Huntley at 5,600. He's 800 more than Trey Lance. He's projecting very similarly, and I think for Trey Lance to fail, the 49ers really just have to come out and want to establish the run, which theoretically could limit Trey Lance's upside, especially if he doesn't get the rushing touchdowns. And in this shootout environment, I expect the Ravens to be down. I think we could see, 35, 40 Huntley dropbacks plus his 8-9 rush attempts on the ground. And I think it's a clear leverage play off of Trey Lance, and he's going to be one of the lower owned quarterbacks on the slate. So Huntley is looking like a clear-cut, great GPP play this week, and there's so many pieces in that game that I'm interested in.
So are you going to be willing to pair him with Mark Andrews? Because that's really the question. Andrews is so expensive. I think he's 7,400, I want to say. Yeah, 7,400, highest priced tight end on the slate. But we've seen, especially with Huntley in there, he just locks onto this dude, Mark Andrews. In the Green Bay game, 13 targets. In the Cleveland game, 11 targets. Just a massive target share, massive ceiling. And Mark Andrews has just been on a complete tear for the last month.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it more when we get to tight end. I don't really have like any concrete thoughts on Mark Andrews as it stands right now. Pull it up. He's 7,400, so he's the most expensive tight end on the slate. I just don't know if like my brand will allow me to do that. Because you know me, I usually never pay up for tight ends, but Mark Andrews has been on a tear, so it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation. But who are some other quarterbacks that you like for this week in tournaments?
So I like the guys that you mentioned in Huntley and Stafford. I'm also interested in going with Josh Allen, just sort of another Bills onslaught. Now, the thing I'm looking at with this game is that the weather conditions in Buffalo, there's supposed to be a decent amount of snow, decent amount of wind. Could be some freezing rain type vibes. So I don't know how that affects things. I still think that Buffalo is going to be able to move the ball in this spot. I mean, Allen is really expensive, priced at 8K, but I mean, they have the highest team total on the slate. They have all their weapons except for Emmanuel Sanders, who I believe is going to miss this game, which, I mean, that just sets up even better for Gabe Davis to be a full-time player. So, I mean, I like that quite a bit, but, Bill's stacks look good to me. Obviously, the popular game this week is going to be this Dallas-Arizona game. Earlier in the week, I kind of wanted to back off of it, but it seems the more that I think about it, I don't see a way that this game is not putting up points. I do want to play Dak. I do want to play Kyler. I want to have some money invested in this game and the pieces involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, has a 51.5 total right now, which is the highest on the slate, just above the Chiefs-Bengals game. And this is just a matchup between two pretty good teams and two pretty good defenses, honestly. So I definitely could see a way that this fails, especially since the Cardinals are missing, DeAndre Hopkins. James Conner is still banged up. Rondale Moore is, I think, going to miss. I think so. I could be wrong on that. So the Cardinals are missing pieces. Rondale Moore is questionable, as you can see on the screen. And, they're going to be trotting out Antoine Wesley, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz, Chase Edmonds as their starting offense. And against this tough Dallas defense, I really have no interest in Kyler or the Cardinal side of the ball unless James Conner is out. And then I think Chase Edmonds would become a standout play at the running back position. Dak is obviously interesting. He's projecting to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate, probably just below Trey Lance. But, any quarterback that you play not named Lance is going to give you some of an ownership discount this week. And it's looking like Dak's receivers and pass catchers in general aren't going to be played. So I don't think this game is going to be too chalky. So the contrarian take might be to stack this game up.
Yeah, I mean, if Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup are both sub 10%, I love the idea of double stacking that and the Dallas side of the ball, which I'm definitely more interested in. We'll talk about the Chase Edmonds stuff when we get to running back. Houston in the chat asks, any chance we get Russ to finally bounce back? I don't think so. I'm off. I'm off for us, bro. I'm not doing it. Yeah. Also, the conditions in that game are supposed to be pretty grimy.
Here, I have it pulled up actually right here. I can zoom in a little bit. So this is one of the more weather concern weeks. Not really too concerned with it personally, but as you can see here, RG has the Detroit-Seattle game a little bit worse than some of these other games in terms of weather. As you can read right here, sustained winds, 50 miles an hour. But Russ has just been underperforming this entire season. So I'm off Russ. I'm just going to fade that game in general. There's not really many players in that game that I'm, trying and actively going to put into my lineup this week. I guess like Swift and like Amon-Ra St. Brown and maybe DK Metcalf are interesting. But, I mean, we could discuss that when we move on. But in terms of quarterbacks, it's a Russell Wilson versus Tim Boyle game in acclimate weather. And the Seattle Seahawks have been underperforming all season. So I'm off Russ.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I disagree. I think that there are a couple of plays in that game, but not at the quarterback position. So we'll talk about that later. Jalen Hurts, Houston points out, looks cheap. And I mean, you were big on Hurts when we recorded the podcast. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, he's just underpriced for his floor and ceiling. And he's going to be one of the more lower owned quarterbacks on this slate. The thing with Hurts is it's just so hard to stack him because there are just so many ways that the game script goes in the Eagles' favor, especially against Washington. And I think that Hurts himself can get there, but he's not rarely ever bringing along Devontae Smith or Goddard or Quez Watkins or whomever. So you really just have to single stack him, and I don't know. I don't really think that works in tournaments, honestly. But he as a play by himself, he's one of the better quarterback plays on the board, in my opinion.
I agree, and I'm not opposed to single stacking him with one of Smith or Goddard. I mean, I think Goddard has the ceiling to differentiate at the tight end position most weeks, anyways. Yeah, I like that. The fact that all their running backs are out could kind of force them to pass the ball a little bit more, or at least give Hurts a bigger share of the rushing, because Jordan Howard seems like he's on the doubtful side of questionable. Miles Sanders is out, and they want to be a super run heavy team. I think Hurts could absorb some of that, and I think some of it could shift a little bit more pass happy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's why I think I would play Goddard or Devontae Smith, only one of them. I just don't see really many scenarios where both of them get there in the same game. And, you're definitely right. This could be a spot where the Eagles pass at a higher rate than they have been over the last 4 to 6 games of the season, where they've been one of the most run heaviest teams in the NFL. And I actually took Jalen Hurts over on his passing prop. So that's kind of my thought process behind it as well. And yeah, Devontae Smith, Goddard are both great plays, and so is Jalen Hurts. But there's so many great quarterback plays. We didn't even talk about Mahomes, Brady, or Burrow, who I think are all in smash spots this week. This is going to be a week where I run 20 lineups.
Really? Yeah, you got to get exposure to all the potential shootouts.
Yeah. It's just going to be one of those weeks.
See, we talked about it a little bit when we were discussing the games earlier in the week about how the Chiefs and Bengals game, it seems like there are some paths to failure there, with especially how well the Chiefs defense has been playing as of late. But at the same time, there are just so many explosive playmakers in this game that could just speed it up at any given second. Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase, two of the most explosive players in the NFL, could easily turn this game into a shootout. I don't know, man. I want exposure to that game. The total's rising. It's above 50 now.
Yep.
It's juicy.
It's at 51, up from 49.5. So 1.5 increase on the total. And I mean, yeah, you're just right about the talent in that game and the playmakers that both teams have that could definitely speed up the game. And it's already a pace up spot for both of these offenses. And, the Chiefs are down CEH, who is pretty much their early down grinder. So they have Daryl Williams and Derek Gore as their running backs now. And I think that when the Chiefs go on the road is when you see their explosive games. If you really take a look at their game log, when they go on the road, they pass more for some reason. Maybe because they play so well on defense at home, and maybe they play a little bit worse on the road. I don't really know what it is, but the Chiefs, for some reason, they score more on the road. And the games are just better overall for fantasy, and they're going to Cincinnati in this spot, and it's a pretty solid matchup for Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, etc. The only thing is if you're actively looking at projections, especially with Mahomes, projections would tell you just to play Josh Allen for 200 more.
Right.
Probably a higher floor due to Josh Allen's massive rushing upside and a higher ceiling. All of the touchdowns are going to go through Josh Allen, whereas there's ways that, 2 or 3 touchdowns in any given week could not go through Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, like, I hear you, and definitely, like, the math will tell you everything that you're saying, but, like, Mahomes can beat Josh Allen in a given week.
Yes.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility, even if it's not like the more likely outcome. It's just tough because Josh Allen has such a good matchup in this spot. Like, I would want exposure to Bills in most of my lineups. I think somebody's going to score some points there, but at the same time, they can spread the ball out a lot. And I don't know, man. The thing about this Chiefs game is, despite it having the high total, despite it having, 2 of the better quarterbacks in the league in it, ton of great playmakers, there's not a lot of ownership on this game at all. None of these pieces are going to be highly owned. So it really gets interesting.
Yeah.
Especially a week after Joe Burrow broke DraftKings with his double stack, and nobody seems to want to go back to it. I'm confused.
Yeah, it's just Joe Burrow's priced up a little bit. He's 200 more than Dak Prescott, who is projecting off the charts in that game. 200 less than Stafford, 400 less than Kyler Murray. So that's why I think Joe Burrow isn't getting much traction, and he's projecting as, a bad value right now. So in terms of projections, there's 7, 8 quarterbacks that say that it seems like are better plays. But when Joe Burrow drops back 45 times, like, we know where the ball's going, which is the great part about the Bengals offense. And you can't say the same for some of these other quarterbacks at the top of the list. Even Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen's going to spread the ball around. Devin Singletary, Diggs, Beasley, McKenzie, Gabe Davis, like, they're all going to get targets, which makes the double stack so much harder to get right. It's hard for me to play Burrow at that price personally, but I could see past to where this game shoots out. Where the targets are going. T. Higgins, Boyd, and Jamar Chase, and all of those receivers specifically, I think, have decent price tags. And they're affordable. And I think my favorite, if I had to pick one, would be T. Higgins. But I'd be more interested in the Mahomes double with a Chiefs bring back.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense to me. Pretty much covered everybody, I think. I mean, Brady is interesting. We didn't talk about that. So many
smash spot
on this week. I know it's such a good spot. And it's leverage off of Rojo, who's going to be massive chalk. So I like that. I mean, you can definitely double stack Brady this week. Antonio Brown, if he plays, massive question mark there, is going to be very heavily owned. But other than that, Mike Evans shouldn't come with too much ownership. Tyler Johnson shouldn't come with too much ownership. You can get contrarian within your buck stacks.
Yeah. Think it's up in the air whether Mike Evans will be back or not, right?
Still dealing with the hamstring. I mean, he practiced quite a bit. I'd be surprised if he missed this game.
Yeah. So you could definitely pivot to Mike Evans off of AB chalk. Mike Evans needs 101 yards for his 6th or 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season. So you got that narrative going, but then you also have the contract incentive narrative with AB, and he's only 6,100. He's a smash spot. So I'm going to play AB in cash. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but I think he is a great play in tournaments with Brady, and a Brady double definitely looks viable. AB and Rojo are going to be chalk. So, if you're fading one, you are probably fading Ronald Jones, because I think there's more outs to failure there with Ronald than AB. But Brady doubles look pretty juicy this week. There's so many good quarterback plays. We didn't even talk about some of these guys at the bottom, just because, if you're in this range, you're going to Trey Lance. There's no reason to play Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, Derek Carr, Tua, Tannehill, Taysom, I guess, is kind of interesting just because of the rushing upside we know. But I mean, I'm not interested.
I'm good on that, bro.
Yeah, but yeah, Mac Jones, Heineke, like none of these guys should be in your lineup. You either play Trey Lance. I think if you want to go off Trey Lance, you go to Huntley if you want to stay in that range.
Yeah,
because Huntley is better than all of these quarterbacks. And if you don't want to play those two guys, you just go and pay up and get the elite quarterbacks. It's that simple.
Yep. I agree with that. I think we've pretty much covered.
So who's your favorite quarterback play before we move on? GPP quarterback winner. Who is it?
I think it might be Mahomes.
Mahomes, I like that call.
It might be Mahomes, Tyreek, and I don't know.
Pringle. We'll talk about it. I love Pringle this week.
Oof.
He's too cheap.
Oof, I like it. All right. Let's talk about the running back position. And this week, the mid-range is just stacked up, dude. I mean, there are so many good plays on this slate at almost every position. Running back is no different. Ronald Jones is 6,300 in the absolute nut matchup going up against the Jets. We have Sony Michel, 5,800, tougher matchup, but he's going to be very chalky, rightfully so. He should handle the vast majority of the snaps. No Darrell Henderson, a couple of scrubs backing him up. Sony Michel will have a little bit of pass game usage. Should be in line for 20 plus touches easily at a sub 6K price tag. I think that those are the two standout plays right off the bat that you're locking into your cash lineup.
Yeah, I mean, really not much needs to be said. You said it all. 6,300, Ronald Jones going up against the Jets. I mean, we've been playing running backs against the Jets all year. Easy lock. Sony Michel, the matchup isn't great, and, we already talked about it, but the Ravens are a pass funnel right now just because they have so many injuries in the back end. But no Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers is not going to be back this week. So the backup to Sony right now is Jake Funk. He's not going to play at all. Sony Michel could be like a 95% snap player. I've hated on Sony Michel, especially like in recent memory, but he's looked good and he's been good for the Rams. Sean McVay trusts him. He could play in the passing game, and he's just an overall good floor pick this week, I think. I think you could definitely get away in GPPs, but for cash games, you're running Sony, you're running Ronald Jones, and I think you're running David Montgomery. I think it's an easy week. In terms of the running back position for cash games, there's a lot of great plays, but these three players are going to be the highest owned at the position. David Montgomery is 6,500. Obviously, the efficiency is a concern, but the sheer volume that David Montgomery is going to get, especially in this positive game script at home against this depleted Giants team, the morale is just so low for the Giants right now. And
we have Andy Dalton starting too, right?
Yeah. So no Justin Fields this week. David Montgomery is like the only running back over the last month of the season to see a 20+% target share. And I don't expect that to change with Andy Dalton at quarterback now. So 6,500, it's always like kind of disgusting to play David Montgomery at this price tag, but he's produced, and the role that he has right now is one of the best in the NFL. And I think you just lock those three running backs in and move on.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's better at just slaying the fantasy season in December than David Montgomery, or January at this point. He's the modern day Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. All right. So on that note, I think that, as you outlined, those are the three clear-cut cash game running backs. I think it is a 3 running back week in cash without question. There's a lot of different pivots you can make in tournaments, though. Devin Singletary, who you mentioned, 5,400 at home in a great spot against Atlanta. Highest implied team total on the slate. They're 14.5-point favorites. I know we don't think of Singletary as having a massive ceiling. I think that he could score 2 touchdowns in this spot for the first time all year. I really like Singletary this week. Daryl Williams is interesting. We know that the Bengals allow a lot of receptions to the running back position. The Chiefs have used Daryl more as a pass catcher than they've used CEH. So if he's going to be out on the field for 65, 70% of snaps, I think that he could find his way into, 5-6 targets in this game. And that's really interesting with the Chiefs having a massive total. There are a lot of plays, though. Chase Edmonds could open up and be one of the better plays. Rashad Penny at home, 6,100 against the Lions. That's interesting. DeAndre Swift is one of my favorite plays on the board this week. We might be getting Eli Mitchell back. I think we are getting Eli Mitchell back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's way too many good running back plays once again.
It seems like just because of the sheer amount of these running backs that have ceilings that you just have to fade like Sony and Rojo and Dima in tournaments, right? Mix it up with these guys. You're getting an owner. As soon as you get out of that tier of 3 guys, you're getting an ownership discount.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these guys have similar touch projections, have similar upsides, and are going to come in at a fraction of the ownership of the top 3 guys. You mentioned Daryl Williams, DeAndre Swift, Eli Mitchell, Chase Edmonds, if James Conner is out, I think could be a little popular. Maybe not, just because, we are getting pretty late into the week. And, if it's an early Sunday inactive, Chase Edmonds is going to be way lower owned than he should be. If Eli Mitchell's out, Jeff Wilson is 5,600. I would be interested there, just because, we already talked about it, but I think the Niners could go run heavy with Trey Lance starting at quarterback. And yeah, I think there's just so many good plays. And we didn't even talk about the top of the range with JT, Eckler, Kamara, Mixon. I think that JT is one of the best plays on the board at 9K. In cash games specifically, there is a route where you could jam in JT and Cup. It is pretty hard, and I've considered it. I haven't really made like a final cash lineup up to this point. If I'm fading one, it's probably like, if I'm fading one of the top 3 to fit JT, it's probably David Montgomery. I think that's a hot take.
I agree.
I think the train that we could see in cash games would be JT over Ronald Jones and pay down at wide receiver, which we'll talk about. But I don't think there's a right or wrong, lineup construction or whether if you go with JT and Cup, or only play one or the other. If I'm picking one, it's Cup though. But JT, great play, and Austin Eckler looks to be like one of the better pivots at the running back position. He's projecting okay. He's a decent value, but he's going to come in at less than 10% ownership. So it looks to me like Austin Eckler is one of the best GPP plays on the board, just from a projection and ceiling standpoint, when you take into account that he's going to be like a 5% owned running back this week.
Yeah, at home.
And Denver's missing so many players.
Yeah, Judy's out, Patrick is out. I think Cortland Sutton is going to miss this game too. This is a must-win game for the Chargers after they got embarrassed by Houston last week. They're still trying to make the playoffs. They have to win this game, and I think Austin Eckler is going to be a big piece of it.
Yeah. And then just in terms on the defensive side of the ball, Ronald Darby isn't looking great. Kareem Jackson isn't looking like he's going to play. Kenny Young, who's one of their starting linebackers, shouldn't be in. Bradley Chubb is confirmed out. Jonathan Cooper, who's also one of their starting linebackers, is also out for this game. And then a couple of their defensive linemen are also going to be out. So the matchup isn't as horrible as it might look on paper for Austin Eckler. And especially if you're just, looking at these opponent ranks right here, a lot of people might get turned off by this Denver rank, but it looks to me that Austin Eckler is one of the better GPP plays on the board this week. And, he practiced in full. He's back. He's ready to roll. And we know what he could do as a fantasy player. So,
yeah, and I mean, I'll also say that I'm not opposed to playing Jonathan Taylor in tournaments as well. Like his ownership, I mean, he's going to be owned, but it's not going to be crazy. It's not going to be. He's not going to be like massive chalk. He'll probably be like around 20, but he could be the highest scoring player on the slate. You could beat him easily. Yep. So
it's a great spot for him.
It's such a good spot against the Raiders, who are missing like their entire linebacking core at the same time as the Colts are getting back their offensive line starters. Wentz should be good to go in this game. Smash spot for JT.
Yeah.
All right. Going back to the mid-range real quick. Is Chase Edmonds cash viable if Connor's out? Would you consider him over, say David Montgomery, as I think we both agree he's the weakest play of the three?
I don't honestly I don't think Montgomery is the weakest play of the three, to be honest. I think Montgomery is a pretty strong play this week, just because we know he's going to get peppered with targets, and we can't say the same for Ronald Jones. And I would fade Montgomery just because he is the most expensive in cash. If I'm playing JT, like if I'm set on trying to jam in the studs, it'd be Montgomery just for the salary savings. But I think Ronald Jones is probably the worst play of the three, just from a projection standpoint. And, there are paths to where Ronald Jones can fail in this spot, specifically by Keyshawn Vaughn. We saw him, come in a little bit. Bruce Arians had the comments about him, whatever. But we know, and we've seen it before, that if Ronald Jones makes one mistake, he's done. And they would 100%, especially against the Jets, just be willing to ride Keyshawn Vaughn and whoever their RB3 is, Le'Veon Bell or whatever. And then, or they could just let Brady sling it all over the Jets, which I think is also possible. So I think Ronald Jones is the worst of the three, and he's the one I would fade. But he's still a great play, and so. But Chase Edmonds, back to the question. I think he would be one of the best plays, and I have a bias towards Chase Edmonds, but I don't know who I would fade, to be honest. Honestly, I would probably fade Sony.
Wow, really? I think Sony's strong. I think Sony's the strongest play of the group.
If we're just going off matchup, he has the worst matchup of the three, but probably
the safest,
the highest, the highest touch projection.
Yeah. See, to me, I mean, I hear what you're saying about Montgomery, but the reason I would fade him is just, you look at the scoring potential, it's drastically higher on the Bucs, 29.25 implied team total, 26 for the Rams. Bears are all the way down at 21.25. I mean, this Bears-Giants game could be absolutely horrific. I don't know. And, David Montgomery was averaging something like 2.1 yards per touch last week. He's just an inefficient back. I know that the catches are going to help him out in this spot. It's a good spot. It's a good matchup. But I think that the thing you get with David Montgomery that you're not really getting with Rojo, and I guess Rojo's the same price, but with Sony, you're at least getting a good discount off David Montgomery to go down to Chase. And Chase Edmonds also projects to see a bunch of targets. Last week without James Conner, he had 9 targets. And there's a lot more potential for big scoring plays in that game between Arizona and Dallas. I don't know, man. Tough decision there.
Yeah, Chase Edmonds, if James Conner is out, is going to project to be one of the best running back plays on the board. But this is a week where we just have so many good running back plays. And, will he leapfrog one of those three guys in projections? Maybe. And if I had to guess, it would be Ronald Jones who he leaps, especially because Ronald Jones' target projection is the worst of the three. And But he has the best matchup, and he's on one of the best teams in the NFL. So it's a tough week to navigate if that opens up, and I think it will. I think James Conner is going to be out for this game. There will be a lot of opportunity for Chase Edmonds. So I don't know. That's just something that we're just gonna have to talk about tomorrow in the Discord, because I'm not sure the player who I would fade for Chase Edmonds, and I don't know. I just don't know right now.
There's also a good chance that we're not going to know in time, because Rojo, Sony, and if I'm not mistaken, David Montgomery all play at 1:00. The Cardinals and Dallas game is at 4:25.
Yeah.
So we're not going to, there's a good chance we don't know in time unless we get some kind of, news tonight, maybe a little Schefter bomb about James Conner, which would be very clutch, but
yeah.
Could be an elite tournament play, though. If you build him into your lineups. Oh, interesting week. Definitely a week to be at your computer grinding. There's going to be some edges to be had with information this week.
Yep.
In terms of, I want to go back and say that my favorite two tournament plays this week at the running back position are Swift and Mitchell. Mitchell, if we get him, massive leverage off of Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. It's a smash spot for the 49ers. They should be able to do whatever they please against Houston. We know that when Mitchell's healthy, they're going to utilize him like a full-blown workhorse. Absolutely love Mitchell. And then DeAndre Swift, I know that it's a quote-unquote meaningless game and the Lions don't have anything to play for, but that's not how the Lions look at it. Dan Campbell's going hard. He's been hyping up Swift all week long, saying he's ready, he's fresh. We're going to give a heavy dose of DeAndre Swift this week. Seattle is like right there with the Jets in terms of being one of the worst run defenses in the league. Swift can easily, anytime he's on the field, rack up 5-6 catches in a game. I think that they're going to use, I think we're going to see a lot of Swift, actually. I think they're going to try and win this game, and Swift is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that for sure. And 6,000 is just very cheap for a player of Swift's talent and receiving upside. I don't know. Are you concerned at all about like Jamal Williams and Craig Reynolds vulturing some touches at least? Craig Reynolds has shown that he can be a little productive with some touches, and I think he could definitely vulture some early down work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my concern is, those guys come in a little bit.
Those guys are the reason why Swift isn't cash viable, but I don't think it really impacts Swift's ceiling.
Okay. Yeah. His ceiling is really coming from targets, not, on the ground efficiency.
This is a guy who was priced at $7,000 pre-injury.
Yeah.
7,300 the last time that he was on DraftKings. So.
Yeah, it's definitely, a risk versus reward bet. I think it's pretty higher risk than some of these other running backs in the same range, but Swift probably has like the highest ceiling out of any of these guys just because of his pass catching ability and his ability to break big plays. And the matchup is pretty great, but obviously you have him being, pretty fragile, to be honest. So you have the risk of re-injury. You have the risk of just the Lions offense just imploding at any moment with Tim Boyle at quarterback. The Lions have a team total of 17.75 points. And then you also have the risk of Jamal Williams, Craig Reynolds vulturing, opportunity and potential touchdowns. So I don't know. I probably won't have much Swift, but I get the reasoning behind it. I just think there's more ways that he fails than some of these other running backs.
Yeah, I could see that. It's definitely a risky play, but it's one that I'm willing to make. Houston asks about Jarrett Patterson, who should get the majority of the work with Antonio Gibson on the COVID list. I'm not too interested in that. Yeah,
I'm not interested in this Washington offense at all. Boston Scott, if Howard and Sanders are out, is interesting. He's only 4,900, and this could be news that we get tomorrow morning. I think is the most likely outcome with that, and in that case, Boston Scott should come in lower owned than he should. So I would be interested in a little bit of Boston Scott. Like we know he has, pass catching ability, and he would be the workhorse on the ground in, a pretty decent spot for the Eagles. But, we've already talked about it. Washington is pretty bad against the pass, and they're pretty good against the run. So it's pretty thin, but I don't know. I guess he would be in play a little bit, but yeah, I have no interest in any of these cheap running backs. I don't really think anybody's viable.
Nope. I think that about covers the running back position. Moving on to wide receiver, man. I don't understand how we have 28 teams on this slate and this few amount of viable wide receivers. Like wide receivers pretty goddamn weak this week.
Yeah, wide receiver is like I just want to play a bunch of running backs.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's a lot of wide receivers to choose from, and there's a lot of talented wide receivers, but in terms of pricing, there's really no standout plays in my opinion besides Antonio Brown at 6,100. And he's questionable. He could miss this week after tweaking his ankle, but if AB is in, I think you're just locking him in cash. We've already talked about the incentive narrative, and then Mike Evans is also a little banged up. They have no Godwin, obviously, and it's a great spot against the Jets. So AB's a stone lock. I think you're playing Cooper Kupp. You get the narrative street with Kupp there, and one of the best fantasy players ever. Cooper Kupp in 2021 is. So Cooper Kupp, AB, I think are locks at the wide receiver position, which helps in cash because, we don't really have to make many decisions there. In terms of the wide receiver 3 spot, it all comes down to how you're constructing your lineup and whether or not you want to jam JT in with Kupp. If you don't, I think you can fit in one of these mid-range guys like DJ Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., Christian Kirk, if you want to go that route. I think all of those guys are okay. But other than that, I'm not seeing like a crazy standout play this week at wide receiver. And, the best plays, you got to pay for them. So
yeah,
this is going to be a tight week. I think the cash lineup is fairly simple, to be honest. Like my cash pool is like 3 running backs. We've already talked about those 3, and like Cooper Kupp, AB are our locks. So you're really choosing one more wide receiver.
Quarterback's already locked in. It's going to be a heavily duped week. I think. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe people get weird. The wide receiver 3 spot is definitely the interesting thing. I mean, do any of the guys like stand out to you? Because the thing with me is that none of them stand out. Like, yeah, you could play Brandon Cooks as your wide receiver 3. You could play Amon-Ra St. Brown as your wide receiver 3. It's just like these guys are not exciting. Pittman's not exciting. DJ Moore is not exciting. These are all guys that are attached to terrible quarterbacks. Like, I don't want to play St. Brown with Swift coming back and Boyle starting at quarterback. I'm not going to do it. Brandon Cooks. I know that Davis Mills has been playing better, but I don't want to play a Houston Texan in my cash game lineup. There's just too many paths to failure. Even though Joey Brandon Cooks is like, 55 yards away from his millionth 1,000 yard season. Got to give it up to this kid. I'm going to be talking about that in the offseason once again. Pittman. I don't know, man. None of these guys stand out to me.
I mean, that's just the play you're going to have to make, though, in cash, is you're going to have to play a wide receiver 3 that you don't feel comfortable about, whether you pay down, which we'll talk about here shortly, to like Braxton Berrios, who's popping right now, so Jets wide receiver, or you play Pittman, who has been pretty solid this year, DJ Moore, albeit with bad quarterback play. You can see it right here, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Like if DJ Moore's getting you 10 plus targets at 5,600, like even if the box score isn't great, like I would play him in cash. The volume is just off the charts for DJ Moore right now. And I think Sam Darnold is a little bit better for the Panthers and especially DJ Moore. And he won't be shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore this week. DJ Moore will work in the slot. And we know that is how you beat the Saints is through the slot. So DJ Moore would probably be my preferred option in this range. But yeah, I definitely don't mind Kirk or Pittman. OBJ, I think, is interesting as a tournament play, not in cash. And yeah, I'm fine with just letting St. Brown. Like if he goes off once again, he's been going off the last month of the season, and I think he is okay play. But I think there's just so many ways that he fails in this spot. On the road in a tough place to play in Seattle. It is a good matchup, but he has a bad quarterback. I don't know. I don't have much interest in St. Brown, but he is going to be one of the more chalky wide receivers on this slate.
No, I'm in lockstep with you. I'm not going to be playing him. I think that, I just don't see the ceiling. I mean, I guess the ceiling is what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, but I don't like the spot for him. So is the decision point like David Montgomery and one of these guys versus Berrios and Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah.
So Berrios is sort of strictly correlated to what you're doing at running back, right?
Yes, pretty much. From the lineups that I've built, Berrios, as you can see on the screen, is 3,700, and there's no Jameson Crowder. Elijah Moore is still hurt or on the COVID list or whatever, so he's going to miss. Corey Davis is obviously out. So they just have Berrios, Denzel Mims, and Keelan Cole as their starting receivers, and we know that the Jets are just not going to be able to run the ball on the Bucs at all. So that's why Berrios is getting, steamed a little bit. He's projecting pretty decently. He should see, 6 to 8 targets in this game against the Bucs, but this is just a spot where the Jets will just probably fall flat on their face. I really want no exposure to Braxton Berrios, especially if he's going to come with like top 3 ownership on the slate. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Easy tournament fade.
Easiest fade of the season is Braxton Berrios. And, he's gotten there off touchdown returns. Like what was this? He got a rushing touchdown in week 15, only scored 10 points.
100-yard return last week.
And a 100-yard punt return against Jacksonville, scored 15. If he doesn't score that, he has 9 points. So
seems like a realistic outcome.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a guy that's going to get you 7 to 10 points, most likely. I don't want no part of that. I'd be fine just fading JT in cash, even though it is a tough fade, and just rolling DJ Moore, AB, and Cooper Kupp as my 3 wide receivers. But if AB is out, I do think Tyler Johnson at that point would be interesting, and I think he would be a better play than Braxton Berrios, only for $100 more. Got shut out last week, got out touched by like Cecil Grayson or whoever the fuck that is. I don't know, but this is a clear flop black spot for Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
And if AB is out, like Johnson will be a smash. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I would definitely have some interest in Tyler Johnson. If AB doesn't play, I wasn't really considering Berrios because that's just too disgusting for me to even, entertain in my brain. So to me, it's like if AB is out and that would make Tyler Johnson, I would play him in cash. And I think that is when you go up to JT, but otherwise I'm probably going to be on the initial build that we've been discussing. For tournaments, I don't really like any of these cheap guys. I don't think that the ceiling is there, except maybe a little bit of exposure to our boy Byron Pringle in Chiefs doubles. He's too cheap. He's 4,100. Last week led the Chiefs in receiving, put up 25 points. We know the ceiling is there. He's really overtaken that role as the wide receiver 2, opposite Travis Kelce, or opposite Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I think Byron Pringle is a very good GPP play this week. Obviously pairs well with Mahomes, and you're going to get him at little to no ownership, in my opinion. And just in terms of GPPs in general, there are a lot of ways you can go this week. You got the Chiefs wide receivers, which I think are both great, Tyreek Hill and Pringle. Not many people are going to go to Tyreek Hill, especially when Cooper Kupp is right there and, he's projecting off the charts. But Tyreek Hill is, a positive value on this week. He's going to be around 10% owned, and we know the ceiling with Hill is one of the highest in the NFL. So Tyreek Hill is one of my favorite tournament plays at wide receiver, along with Pringle and, the Mahomes double. I think guys like Jalen Waddle, AJ Brown are very interesting, especially AJ. I think this is another great spot for AJ Brown. The Titans, we just know they have nobody else on their offense that's worth a damn right now. So I like AJ Brown. It's a revenge game for Tannehill. And he's just going to be peppered with a bunch of targets. And we obviously know that he's just a grown-ass man. So I like AJ Brown at 7,200. He's one of my favorite GPP plays at wide receiver. But this range is probably where you're going to want to be for tournaments if you just want ceiling combined with ownership, leverage, Cooper as part of the Dallas double, CD, T. Higgins, I think, is a great bring back for Mahomes doubles. Already been toying with lineups with the Mahomes double with T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is priced up a little bit. I don't know. Take your pick out of any of these guys. I think they're all in great spots and they're all great plays.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that, with the ability to get a lot of potential ceiling at the running back position in the mid-range, that you can really just sort of live in this range at wide receiver and just, God, if you pick the right guys, it's probably the highest ceiling build that you can get into tournaments this week.
Yep. And, the running back value is there this week. You're probably going to have to pay down at a couple positions, but you got Trey Lance as a pay down option, a couple tight ends, defense, obviously. So you could definitely make it work. And yeah, AJ, I think, is my favorite of the bunch, but CD and Amari Cooper, I think, look pretty great right now. Just goes back to the point of this Cowboys game. Like, it's the highest total game on the slate, and really nobody's projecting to be high owned from this game. Like, CD Lamb is projected to be like the 8th most owned wide receiver, and then Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, like they're going to be all like owned at a very low rate. So
yeah, Cardinals are without their top 2 corners too, right? If I'm not mistaken, at least one of them.
I didn't see that. Are they?
I believe they are.
Well, that's even better for the Dallas Cowboys double.
Yeah, I got heavy interest in Amari Cooper this week. I got a feeling.
Yeah, I'm surprised that a lot of these guys aren't popping with more ownership. Like, I think the Dallas double is one of the best doubles on this slate. I don't know. I think that could easily be a Millie winner. And Dallas is obviously one of those teams where it's hard to predict where the targets are going to go, just because you have like 7 people that are involved in the offense. You got Zeke, Pollard out of the backfield, Schultz, Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb. So it makes the double hard to predict, which is kind of why these Cowboys players always come in at lower ownership. But if you get the 2 right, you're sailing to the money. It's the best game environment on the slate. At least that's what Vegas thinks. and they're smarter than us.
Yeah. I really like the idea of a Dak double with, a little bit of built-in contrarianness with Chase Edmonds,
Mm-hmm.
Build it in early, especially if we don't get the Connor news. Like that could be the ultimate hammer for this slate.
Yeah, because late, who you could build in is, you could have Swift or Eli or somebody like that. If you're down, then you could pivot to Chase Edmonds, and you have a couple extra $100. Maybe you upgrade your defense if you play a 4:00 D. The Saints, I think, are a great defensive play this week, and they play at 4:00 as well. So there's some flexibility there. And yeah, Chase Edmonds, that's definitely going to be some impactful news. So that's going to be a late swap opportunity, I think. But yeah, in terms of wide receiver, anybody else that you like?
Covered pretty much everybody. I mean, I think that it's interesting how highly owned Trey Lance is going to be, and that neither of his, or I shouldn't say neither, none of his wide receiver or tight end pass catchers are going to be highly owned. Deebo Samuel is going to be like under 5% owned and has one of the highest ceilings on the slate. So if I were going to play Trey Lance in tournaments, I would probably try and pair him with one of these contrarian pass catchers that we know has a high ceiling, whether it's Deebo or Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, Deebo isn't projecting great.
He's not
right now, and he's so expensive. And, I've already said it a bunch, but this could be a spot where the Niners just don't throw the ball a ton. And Eli Mitchell could be back, which I think hurts Deebo Samuel's like rushing opportunity. And we saw it last week. Like, this is kind of like the game where Deebo hits his ceiling, right? He didn't score, which is unfortunate. And that, would have been a crazy game, but 11 targets in 5 attempts is kind of what we want out of Deebo for a ceiling game. And I think that's going to be very hard this week. So Deebo's a fade for me at his price tag. Rather play Tyreek. I'd rather play Diggs and Cooper Kupp. Think he's one of the easier fades on the slate, to be honest. Yeah, I think the Justice mid range is where I'm gonna live this week.
Yeah.
Hunter Renfrow, any interest there? He needs like 8 catches to get to 100. He's gonna get fed.
I know. Look at that dude, though. He's such a goofy.
Yeah, he is a goofball.
I don't know, man. 6,500 for Hunter Renfrow. Is that what we're doing in today's day and age? I guess.
Same price as DK Metcalf.
That's disgusting to think about.
100 less than Cooper, 200 less than Waddle.
Yeah, no, I would just play. I'm just gonna play Amari Cooper in that range.
Hey, Hunter Renfrow has 30 balls in his range of outcomes, and Darren Waller is going to be out again.
I had him in cash when he dropped that 30 ball. I remember. You ain't got to tell me.
Yeah, nah. I mean, Colts defense has been playing pretty well, although I think they are down a couple of players in this spot. But in terms of ranges of outcomes, like this is the most realistic, probability is he finishes with like 16 to 20 points.
Yeah.
And, on a slate like this, I think a lot of these wide receivers in this range can beat him.
Like if you're going to make that type of play, I think I would rather play Jalen Waddle for 200 more.
Yeah. I think Waddle's one of the best plays on the board this week. 6,700. Yeah. He's going to just get peppered with a crazy amount of targets. And
you like the little Jalen Waddle, AJ Brown correlation play?
Yeah, that's a vibe. And Waddle's going for the rookie reception record too, which I think was set by Michael Thomas. So got that narrative as well. And
I love record-breaking season. It's always fun to talk about all these plays that we were going to make anyways. Just add a little extra sauce on it.
Yeah, and then we didn't talk about it, but the Rams receivers I think are both great. Van.
Oh yeah.
And OBJ, not named Kupp. Kupp, great play. Can include him in the double stack for sure, but Van Jefferson and OBJ, nobody's going to play them. So I think those are two of my favorite tournament plays on the board, and I just want exposure to this Rams offense in this spot against Baltimore. But I will note there is some concern. They have trended a little bit more run heavy, and you could see it in Stafford's game logs. Like, he's throwing the ball just a little bit less than he was, like, especially during this, mid stretch where he's throwing it, 48, 41. It's kind of tailed off a little bit after, those comments from McVay, like, we want to go more towards power football. Like, we want to run more heavy sets. We've kind of seen it, as you can see right here, like 30, 29, 37.
McVay's also sharp, though, and the way that you beat the Ravens is by attacking the...
Is he sharp?
The secondary.
That's a question.
I don't know, man. You just stumped me.
Is anybody sharp?
What is sharp?
Exactly. But yeah, Rams double. Van, great play. This great tournament play. OBJ.
I like OBJ. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Question: can we see what we've seen with Josh Allen, where the double stack hits without the primary receiver? We've seen Josh Allen doubles without Stephon Diggs ship millies this year. Can a Stafford double with OBJ and Van hit, or is too much of Stafford's ceiling tied up in Cooper Kupp?
No, I definitely think it can hit. I think if Stafford is hitting his ceiling, Cooper Kupp is probably getting there, but he's also 9,500. So Cooper Kupp really needs like 35 to help you. If Cooper Kupp is scoring 25 and OBJ and Van are scoring like 20 and 21, say that's the outcome. You're better off playing Van and OBJ with Stafford. But yeah, Stafford's hitting a ceiling. He's bringing multiple receivers along with him, and Van Jefferson is what I think. I think he's the deep threat in that offense. And the Ravens give up like more big plays to opposing wide receivers than any other defense in the NFL. So you got some big play touchdown potential from Van in this spot. And obviously OBJ, I mean, we've kind of seen it, but he can score touchdowns, especially on this offense, has, 4 touchdowns in 5 games since joining the Rams. And if he gets you 19 to 21 at 5,700, could definitely be a GPP winner. So it's hard to not play Kupp with Stafford, but I think this is a spot where you can do it, and it definitely makes sense, especially at Kupp's 9,500 price tag.
Yeah, definitely. I also wanted to shout out this article on RotoWorld by Pat Crane I was reading this morning, just highlighting how the perception is that Van Jefferson is the primary deep threat, but his ADOT is 14.2 and Odell's is 14.1. So they are actually being targeted at a very similar, part of the field, down the field, but Odell Beckham is earning targets at a 20% rate on all of his routes. And that is quite a bit higher than Van Jefferson. So I really do like Odell as the secondary Rams wide receiver. Shout out to Pat Crane for that article on RotoWorld.
Yeah. No, I would prefer OBJ as well. I just think Van is viable as well.
Definitely. I mean, that about covers it. Unless you want to talk about Kenny Golladay, I saw you tweet about him.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody else there. If the Giants were good, it would be interesting, but they're not good. But he gets targets. It's kind of the play you're making is hopefully that, he scores a touchdown. He'll probably get 10 plus targets in this spot from Glennon or Jake Fromm, whoever plays. And it is a good matchup on paper.
Happy New Year's, Chris. Yeah. Sorry, no cash or GPP video this week. It's just been, incredibly busy. Had to work all day, all night last night. It's just I couldn't do it, unfortunately. My fault, bro.
Yeah.
But we got you on all the information here. Full replay will be available on the YouTube channel. We've basically laid out like 7 out of the 9 pieces for the cash core that you need to be running. Speaking of tight end this week, how do you feel about Yeah, we do.
We got a punt.
It
This is
opened
the
up
week.
late. Jared Cook put on the COVID list, and that opens up Steven Anderson, converted wide receiver, min price 2,500. Are you interested in this man?
I mean, it's a min price tight end, and he's going to play a fuck ton. So I'm
But
playing him in cash.
they have another tight end, right? Like McKitty, Trey McKitty.
Yes, McKitty.
Yeah. So do we? I mean, what's the split going to be here?
So last week with Cook in, Anderson played 31% of the snaps, and McKitty played 21%. The week before that, McKitty did play a little bit more. What I think the split will be is Anderson will probably lose snaps in this game to McKitty if McKitty is a better blocker, which I think he is. And this could be obviously a game script where the Chargers go a little bit more run heavy. Should be a favorable game script for them with all of the Broncos, like COVID injuries and whatnot. So I think he's going to be out there a little bit more just to block. But Anderson, like you said, converted wide receiver, I would assume he runs more routes, and he has ran way more routes than Trey McKitty on the season. So Anderson is definitely the play here at 2,500. Not too concerned about Trey McKitty being involved in the passing game at all. And the Chargers are they're still going to throw the ball, especially early in the game. And Anderson, he's going to be out there quite a bit. And if you get 4 or 5 targets at 2,500, especially from Justin Herbert, they should live in the red zone and in the end zone in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just playing Steven Anderson in cash and fading him in tournaments.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I think it makes the lineup work in cash, so I'm comfortable playing it. I'm always comfortable punting it off at tight end, but I really don't see much of a ceiling there. Little to no interest in tournaments. Probably wouldn't make that play. Who do you like at the tight end position for tournaments this week?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty unexciting week at tight end, just because DraftKings has done a good job of pricing up these guys like Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews are all very expensive. I have no interest in Kittle. Like, I'm starting him in one of the fantasy championships I'm in, but I've already said the concerns, and with everybody healthy now, the target outlook for Kittle, I think is probably as low as it's ever been, especially with him being as good of a blocker as he is. Like, Shanahan just asks him to stay in and block so much that it hurts his target volume. But obviously, it's a fucking smash spot for him. And, he's talked up Trey Lance. Maybe Trey Lance gives him a couple extra looks because of it. Kelsey is in a smash spot. We obviously know what he could do. Mark Andrews, 7,400. Jesus Christ. I can't go there. Like, at that point, they're just competing with these guys at wide receiver, in my opinion. If you're paying that much.
This dude, Mark Andrews, is he's right there, though. This man has 93 receptions for almost 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. Like,
yeah,
Jesus
Christ. Mark Andrews has been on another level this last month of the season.
He's been turning up like crazy.
But 7,400, I just can't do it.
Yeah, that's nasty. Ertz worth the money? I don't think so.
I mean, he's projecting as the best value on the slate. Zach Ertz, that is.
I mean, this man has 24 targets over the last 2 weeks, and he put up 13.4 points in back-to-back games.
Yeah, I mean, you're just
the ceiling's just not there.
Yeah, the ceiling is non-existent with Ertz. You just need this game, a two-tutty game, 28 points. Other than that, you're probably going to get 10 to 15 out of Zach Ertz is probably his range of outcome. And I don't know. I don't have much interest in in Zach Ertz at 5,200, but I will say he is projecting as the best tight end value on the slate. So maybe he is worth a look in GPPs, and he's going to be, pretty owned as well.
Yeah, I think in tournaments, the range that I want to be in, if I'm not, I would play Kelsey and Mahomes stuff. I would play Andrews as a bring back and Stafford stuff. But if I'm not doing that, I think I just sort of want to be in like that low 4K range. We talked about it on the podcast. I still really like Hunter Henry this week. I think Higbee is a great contrarian piece to double up with your Stafford stuff. He's only 4K. Foster Moreau is 3,800. Shouldn't come with the same level of ownership as Anderson. I mean, it's not like a sexy play, but you might only need 10 points out of tight end this week.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think there's a lot of ways that Anderson fails, obviously, especially with Mike Williams back, Jalen Guyton is back, Austin Eckler is back. So he's strictly only a cash play for me. And I think it is the clear-cut wrong thing to do is to play Anderson and GPPs.
Mm-hmm.
And, on this week, probably all of these tight ends are going to outscore Steven Anderson. All of the guys that you just mentioned in this tier, they're all in pretty great spots. Foster Moreau looks like a great, JT bring back. Tyler Higbee looks like a great piece for your Stafford stacks. Gerald Everett is interesting. Hunter Henry, I think, is pretty interesting as well. So I don't mind any of those guys for sure. And tight end, I think it's a tough tight end week.
It is. I also don't hate the two Broncos guys since they're like the last pass catchers alive in Denver right now.
Yeah, you got
Alberto's only 3K.
3K. The ceiling is obviously just so low, but like you said, you're probably only going to need like 10 points out of these guys this week because. I mean, just in terms of these cheap tight ends, none of them are going to separate from each other. You just have to hope that Andrews and Kelsey don't break the slate, which they easily could. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll have exposure to some of them. But I think the tight end that's going to get overlooked this week is Gronk.
Yeah. I mean, it's been tough sledding for Gronk recently. I mean, but we know the ceiling is there. And they are depleted on offense right now. I don't hate Gronk. I mean, his ownership is going to be held well within check, right?
Yeah, he's not going to be owned at all. Pairs well with Tom Brady. And obviously the touchdown expectation is some of the best on the slate with this Bucks against the Jets. And, he's good leverage off of AB and Ronald Jones. I think Gronk is a fantastic tournament play this week, and he's tormented the Jets his entire career. I don't see why it would stop this week. So is Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm. So, I like that. And I mean, basically every non-AB Rojo piece of that game is going to be contrarian. So you can double up Brady, eat the brown chalk, and play Gronk and still be fine.
Like, obviously, game script is a concern, and
it's still going to be passing though.
Yeah, it's a concern with a lot of the games on the slate. There's a lot of blowout risk with like 4 or 5 of these 14 games on the slate, and you're getting $1,100 discount, $1,200 discount off of Kelsey and Andrews, and I think you're getting similar upside, especially touchdown upside with Gronk and the injuries that the Bucks have. So Gronk would be my favorite pay up option at tight end just because of the price. But I think this is probably a week where you got to have a little bit of exposure to Kelsey and Andrews, especially when you're game stacking those games.
Yep, I agree with that.
And then Dallas Goedert. I mean, we didn't mention him, but Dallas Goedert is actually the guy that I was looking at when I was talking about Ertz. Goedert is projecting to be the best tight end play on the board from a value perspective. Not Zach Ertz. I was looking at the wrong thing.
Okay. All right. Good clarification there. I would probably only play Goddard as a piece of a single stack with Jalen Hurts.
I mean, we saw it against Washington 2 weeks ago. They couldn't cover this man. And he dropped a potential 70-yard touchdown that turned into an interception.
Yeah. I mean, he was literally just abusing their defense.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Dallas Goedert and Jalen Hurts just because I think both of those players are a little bit underpriced for their ceilings, especially Jalen Hurts. We already talked about it, but Dallas Goedert 5,100 looks pretty good this week, and he's going to be lower owned than Steven Anderson and probably CJ Uzomah, who we didn't talk about, but he's popping a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean Goddard could like 5x them in terms of production, so
yeah,
easily.
Yeah.
What do you want? You want to build a perfect lineup before we get out of here? Little tournament winner for the people. Oh, hold up, I forgot. We missed this question earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
Who's the Rashad Penny, Deontay Foreman play of the week? For me, it's Swift. It's either Swift or Eli Mitchell if we get him back. Those are the two guys that I'm really interested in that range. I think you're getting a massive ownership discount off of, the Sony, the Rojo, the David Montgomery tier. Daryl Williams is going to be higher owned. I love Swift's upside this week. You can go back and listen, but we talked about the risk reward of DeAndre Swift this week. I think the reward is potentially high, even though you are embracing a lot of risk. But so, you were doing the same thing with Penny and Foreman. Exactly. We're playing for first or last, and DeAndre Swift is a great play. And Eli Mitchell just makes a ton of sense as leverage, as Trey Lance is going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. So,
yeah, I definitely agree with Mitchell. I mean, I've already said that I'm pretty out on Swift, but I could see why you play him just because of the talent and the reception opportunity there. But a lot of ways for Swift to fail, especially with Tim Boyle at quarterback. But my play of the week that kind of resembles like Penny or Foreman would be Mitchell too if he's back. If not, Jeff Wilson would be mine. And then my second would be Chase Edmonds, just because Chase Edmonds is going to be lower owned than he should if James Conner is out, which I already said it, but I think James Conner is more doubtful than questionable. And this is obviously something that, we'll have to wait till tomorrow to see. He's a 4:00 game. So is he? No, they play at. Oh yeah, they do. They play at 4:25. Yep, that's the premier game.
It's the late night hammer.
So Chase Edmonds 5,700. He's going to project very, very, very well if James Conner is out, and the ownership will not match the projection just because of the late news, which I think is probably the most likely thing to happen unless James Conner gets ruled out today. Then scratch whatever I'm saying. But
James then he'll be like the highest owned running back on the slate.
If James Conner gets ruled out tomorrow, does make a difference. But if he gets ruled out tomorrow, Chase Edmonds is going to be way lower owned than he should. But all right, GPP lineup, potential Millie Maker winning lineup. I think that we fade Trey Lance.
I mean, we've been talking about it. I feel like we got to go with the Dallas double, no?
I think there's so many doubles in play.
There's definitely a lot of doubles in play.
If I had to rank mine, my favorite would be the Rams double. But the bringbacks are questionable. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because Mark Andrews is so expensive, and you'd be using like 50% of your salary on Stafford, Kupp, and Mark Andrews right there.
Yeah.
So it'd be a hard lineup to make work. Dallas double is a little bit more cheaper. I guess we go with Dallas. I mean, Dak is projecting to be like a top 3 owned quarterback, but he's projecting as like the best value out of these quarterbacks in this range, like from Dak up.
I like the Dak double because even if he is one of the higher owned quarterbacks, it's not going to be like a high owned cumulative lineup because none of the pieces are massive chalk, Amari Cooper, and then are we doing CD or Gallup?
Gallup is pretty cheap. Obviously, we haven't seen a Gallup ceiling game. I think Amari Cooper is the play just because he's 6,600. You know, he came out last week and was like, yo, I need the ball more. And they gave him the ball more. So
Goddamn right.
I
So
think
let me get that. And they gave it to him.
so. That honestly, like, I think we go CD and Amari and figure it out.
And then
we know CD is going to get targets.
Chase, right? Or Chase Edmonds as the bring back.
Yeah, so kind of build him into this lineup, and we could pivot off Edmonds to like to Jeff Wilson would be a great 1-for-1 pivot if James Conner gets ruled in, or we could find the 300 to get up to Mitchell. You know, we got some options to go like down from Lamb to Gallup, and we can make the lineup work like that. So I like Chase Edmonds. And I think just from a GPP lineup construction sense, 4 wide receivers is probably going to be a little more unique than 3 running backs this week. So I don't know. We could play 4 wide receivers, but I don't. We'll see.
We'll see. Wide receiver. Odell? Rams one off?
I mean, I'd rather just play Cup. But
do we have the salary for Cup? I don't think we have the salary for Cup. Here, let's plug a defense in there, see exactly what we're working with.
I mean, at defense, we didn't talk about D, but you got to pay up a little.
Yeah.
In GPPs.
I like the Chargers a lot.
Chargers at home against the Broncos.
Bears, both of those.
I just think the Broncos are just going to fucking run the ball so much.
Yeah, and they could have success running against the Chargers. I mean,
yeah. I personally would rather play the Saints.
Okay. I'm on board with the Saints.
Just because Chicago is going to be the highest owned defense. Okay. I mean, Saints are going to be up there too, but Saints are projecting the best, and they're the best value.
I mean, the Bills are 100 more too at home against the Falcons. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. But this was Saints in there. Saints also, from this lineup perspective, they play at 4:00, so that would leave open like the swaps that we could make.
Okay.
So we could pick our running back, our second running back, if you want. I mean, I know you would probably go with Swift, but I think we're already contrarian enough that I think we could play one of these, chalky running backs that are projecting very well, like David Montgomery or, Ronald Jones, if we want to go that route. But I'm also open to I don't know. I think
in tournaments, I think the one that I would be most interested in out of the chalky guys is probably Rojo. I just think that there's the most touchdown upside in that spot.
Yeah, but the least target upside.
Correct.
The lead, yeah. So we got this stack in the bring back. So we could correlate the rest of this lineup. So we could play. Could we fit like a AJ Brown Waddle? Will that work? Probably not. Yeah, there's no shot.
I mean, you could fit like a Cooks 49ers running back. You could one-off Singletary for the salary. That's probably what you're doing in this type of lineup.
Yeah. 4,200 left.
Like Tyler Johnson and a tight end, or, like Byron Pringle one-off with a tight end.
Yeah, that's probably the route, honestly. Oh my God, I hate playing the Texans. I hate playing a Houston Texan player
I
in
know, but
DraftKings.
you just got to accept that Brandon Cooks is a fucking alpha. Okay.
Well, didn't he have some struggles with COVID? Wasn't he one of those guys that came out and said like he struggled a little bit?
Yeah. He was saying he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
But he's got 21 targets over the last 2 games that he's played.
Yeah, and Davis Mills has been playing
like
pretty
surprisingly well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And then you could go like Pringle, and then you got your choice of tight end, which I think would be like, I think I like Higbee the most.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And it gives you flexibility. You got 400 on the board if you want to go, if Connor gets ruled in, you got enough for Swift.
Yep. You got some flexibility for sure. Just trying to see. I mean, Cortland
Thoughts on
Sutton.
Brevin Jordan. Look at the game log.
Brevin. I was considering him last week, to be honest. He's right here.
2,800.
Yeah, no, he's involved a little bit for
So,
sure.
I mean, is he the Texans bring back then, and you use the salary elsewhere instead of Cooks?
Is he?
He might be. I mean, if we're going to invest in the Texans, we might as well, invest it at the tight end position, right?
Yeah, and then you get 5,700 for a flex, which is
no, because you take Cooks out.
Oh yeah, Cooks. Then you could go like an OBJ one off, and you got 6K for like a Swift or somebody, or something like that.
I kind of like that, or you could play Van and get up to like what is right. We got
or Penny. Honestly, I think I like Penny a little bit more, but the receiving upside is just so low. Like he's not going to catch any passes, but I think he is probably a lock to go over 100 yards against the Lions.
Yeah, no, I like that too. Also, Carson Wentz was just activated, so that's dope.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I like this construction though. I do.
So it'd be something like that. Like,
yeah. That's vibes.
It's a good GPP lineup for sure. I think there's a lot of late swap opportunity too. If you're behind, which I mean, it'd be hard to gauge because you would be behind because a lot of these players play at 4, so you'd probably have to stay.
Like
but
almost the entire lineup plays at 4, except for Odell.
Yeah. So I mean, if OBJ hits for 30, like
you're sitting pretty.
You're in a good spot, I guess.
You're lit.
No, it'd be hard to gauge that, but yeah, this is probably like how I'm going to construct a lot of my tournament lineups this week. Is
very balanced.
Just doubles with the elite quarterbacks. I'll definitely play some Trey Lance. Like I'm not full fading Trey Lance in GPPs. I already said it, but Tyler Huntley is a great pivot at the quarterback position for 5,600. And honestly, you could go like Huntley and 2 Rams wide receivers, something unique like that.
Yep.
So that's definitely the route that I'm going to be going this week.
Yep. I agree fully. I think we've said it all and done it all, frankly. We just hit an hour 30 talking about this 14-game week 17.
Huge slate.
Big slate. Interesting slate. A lot of ways you can go. Good luck to everybody out there watching. Let's have a really profitable week. Let's, I mean, if you guys are still sweating, best ball, best of luck to you. Let's make some money this week, bro.
Facts. Let's make some money. Make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Sub to the channel, like the video if you're watching on replay, and join the Discord channel. Link to do so is in the description below. We'll talk to you guys next time.